right, welcome to the November 3rd Edmond Rotary Club, and I would like to ask Kathy Reeser to come up, and if you would all stand, Kathy's going to lead us in pledge and prayer. Good. Watch that step.
It's a little late. Okay, bow your head, please. Dear Lord, thank you for this wonderful group of friends and Rotarians. What an honor to serve you through them. Lord, guide and direct us. Give us your wisdom as we make decisions. Thank you for the opportunity to serve. Thank you for this food. Help it to nourish our bodies. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, Kathy, and also thank you to all of our Rotarians in service today, our registrar, Peggy Guide, and one of our newest members, our greeter today, Cody Hardy. Let's give them all a round of applause. And we're going to have a My Rotary story here for the Honorable Mr. Murdoch.
Yay!
Hello, my name is Steve Murdoch, and my classification is municipal law. The temperature today is 87 degrees, it's sunny outside, and if you might remember back when I was president, I told I start the meeting, I would give you the weather forecast. So hopefully we'll get a little rain today. I joined the Rotary in 1991.
So Andy Lester just rolled in.
Yes, I have his printout right next to the general.
I was just trying to find somebody here that could do it for me, so good.
Yeah, it's ready.
And so, sounded like a good idea to me. And we were called the Rotary Club of Edmond Central at that time. We met at the University Center at UCO. I served as president from 1994 through 1995. At that time, on my board was Steve Knox, Jules Valdez, who was scheduled and killed in the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995. Joe Davis was also on my board, along with Steve Kreidler, Mark Lyle, G.K. Powers, Guy Coffey, and James Sutter.
Wow.
So those folks are still involved in our club. Why did I join Rotary? Well, I thought it would be a good idea, as I said. I remember being a junior Rotarian down in Oklahoma City where I grew up, and they had good lunches, and so, well, I had the opportunity to get good lunch. Well, I love to serve other people, and so service of myself worked for me and came naturally for me. As I think about my time in Rotary Club of Edmond, I think of Rotarians such as George Meisel, who had many years of perfect attendance. I think of Walt Stammer, I think of Buddy Morris, I think of Bob Thomas and Langston Benagna. I think of Ray Woodbury and Charles
You're to the left of the general, and I have your printout.
Just to name a few. Rotary is serving others. And I really enjoy serving others, and I think that you do too. So, you want me to serve you good friends? That's my story. What is yours?
Thanks, Mr. Murdoch, for an impactful story, all you do for the community. Just a little personal note, when Dana and I moved to Edmond in 1997, Mr. Murdoch and Denise were our next door neighbors. So the reason why you're stuck with me is because he sponsored me into Rotary. So thanks for all you guys do. You see the list of our upcoming speakers. Again, a long-standing tradition of this club is high-quality speakers, and we're all very blessed. So before we start Sergeant at Arms with Chief, one of the things that we do in the community is serve others and try to make an impact. And just the impact for this week is I want to encourage everyone to be an encourager and think about, good or bad, what you put on social media. There's some things that are kind of disturbing in Edmond about the schools. So be an encourager face to face, word to word, but also behind your keyboard. So that's our impact for the week. Jessica, come on up first. And then we're going to have Cindy, Barry, and then Mike.
I'm gonna sit right here, if that's okay. Hi, guys. Good afternoon. Wow, this is weird. I haven't been up here in a bit. I also want to thank Steve Murdoch, because you guys have to deal with me because of him. So thanks, Murdoch, for sponsoring me. I think I asked him, and he just couldn't say no. So anyways, I am up here to talk to you guys about Rotary Trivia. You have flyers on your table. It's coming up December 1st. We'll be here live. We will not be doing a Zoom option that day because it's way too hard and not as much fun, right? So, note the time. We're gonna start at 11:30 so we can get 2 really, really fun rounds of trivia in, like we did last year. And $25 to play. If you wanna build your own custom team, it's $150. Allison has sign-up sheets back at the table for both individual and team play, or you can email me, my email's on here. Graciously, James and Dana Boggs decided to be our presenting sponsor again, so that slot is taken. Thank you, James, appreciate that. Goes to a good cause, but we do have some more sponsorship opportunities, some great sponsors, and you guys can sponsor a question or even write one if you'd like, and then obviously, this could not be successful without our mulligans. If you guys don't know what mulligan is, if you don't know the answer, you write mulligan, hey, guess what, you got it right. So, that's how we do it. Payment options, all down here, everything you need to know is here. If you have any questions, feel free to call or email me. Last year we raised on a virtual only event a little over $2,500. I want to double that this year. So y'all need to help me, okay? Okay, so just let me know. Thank you so much. Okay, Gabe, do you want to come up and give us an update on your lovely wife? Is it okay that you come up here, or do you want to be on? Okay. We will be getting to Sergeant of Arms in just a minute, I promise.
Okay, this is my first time up here. Several people asked me before the meeting, so I said I would just give one update so as to avoid my sob story being told over and over and over again. My wife's water broke at 19 weeks, which is really early for most of us. You know, I'm a man, I don't really know how that stuff works. I've learned a lot the last few weeks. So anyway, we've been on, very, very well taken care of, very blessed. She was put on bed rest immediately, so we had a few days in the ER. Basically, they had to make sure that she did not get infected, because when you have one of those ruptures, that's the immediate concern. Luckily, we avoided that, and then we spent a month at the house, so I became a homemaker, which was interesting, but also, I learned a lot. It's been good. And then we, starting on October, I guess it was the 19th, went back to the hospital, and we will be there until the baby comes. The due date was the second week of February. That's not going to happen. It is one of those paradoxical situations where it's any day now, but hopefully not for a few more weeks. She's 25 weeks today. The goal is to get her to 32 to 34 weeks. When these ruptures happen, they have to weigh 2 risks. One is the risk to the baby, and the other is the risk to the mother. When you're in this range of 24, 25, 26, 27 weeks, and baby's lungs have not developed, the risk to the baby is higher than the risk to the mother. However, once the lungs are developed and we start getting, the ballpark of 30, 32 weeks, all of a sudden it's, okay, let's make sure mom doesn't get infected, and they will probably induce, or in this case, they'll do a C-section because the baby's breached. That is the health update. Besides that, we really have been blessed and taken care of. There's no real reason why the baby is growing besides just miracle. She has no amniotic fluid, but the baby's lungs are still growing, so we're really thankful to God for that. So much prayers and support, so thank you all here have been praying. Thank you for all who have helped in other ways. You know who you are and how. And I'll try to give updates as I can once, so that this is a lot easier for me. So thank you.
So I know what you're going through. Mr. Murdoch will remember we were supposed to have a baby in 2000 in 1999. So right now we're going to go to the Lord in prayer for you, right? Father God, we love you, Lord. We lift up Gabriel. We know, Lord, that you're the ultimate physician, you're the ultimate nurse. We give you all the praise and the credit and the glory that their baby is growing. Lord, we ask you to be with them. We ask you to be with the medical team. We ask you to just encourage Gabriel and know that we're here when He needs us. In the Holy name we pray. Amen. Okay, so we have some special announcements real quick before we go Sergeant of Arms. We're going to do them from the floor. Cindy, and then Barry Bell, and then Mike Sanders, and then we'll get JD, Chief JD.
Okay. I know we've had good afternoon, everybody, by the way, Cindy. Gosh, Gabriel, I'm kind of choked up, so you're in my thoughts and prayers, and your wife as well. So it is fall, and we have had some great volunteer opportunities from Keith and all his committee, and I thank you for that. So as we turn our calendar from November to December in a few weeks, it is, ring-a-ling time. So I have been talking with the Salvation Army pretty regularly since August. Their hopes were a little better, that clubs and civic organizations would come back this year. It's coming in dribbles and drabs, unfortunately, and not back to full force. So they have kind of pleaded with us and implored with us to please take 4 doors back instead of 2 like we did last year at Danforth and I-35. So I'm going to start the sign-ups. I know we've got a lot of volunteer opportunities that have been going on, but this is kind of our give back in December. So there is 1 slot per time frame. I know a lot of you ring together, and that's fine if you still want to do that, but we've got 32 slots to fill. So if you can, do it by yourself or bring somebody with you. I know Sandy and Richard and Krista and Tim, they've done it forever and ever together. So if we still need to do that, that's fine. I'm going to start it over here at the Powers. Just one quick story. I can't leave without a story. I was at the Kettle probably around dinner time last year, and a lady came over to me and said, as many people do going into the grocery side, I'll catch you on my way out with whatever I have left. And she said, I've got a long list of things, I got $100, but you'll get whatever I have left. I said, great, that's so generous, I'll see you on your way out. She wasn't in there very long, maybe 5-10 minutes, and she had one little bag. She came over to me and she said, I'm back. And I said, wow, that long list didn't take very long. And she said, I've got milk and bread, and that's really all I need. And she handed me a fistful of 20s and change and said, put this in the kettle. And I said, wow, that's so generous. Are you sure you're okay with this? She said, yes, I sure am. And let me tell you why. Years ago, I came from the East Coast. I got in my car at 2 a.m. in the morning with my 2-month-old son, left an abusive husband, no clothes but what we had on our back, money in my purse, the car, and gas. I drove and drove and drove on I-40. I ran out of money and gas at I-35 and 40, got off, Oklahoma City, who knew? I didn't even know it existed, and found the Salvation Army emergency shelter. They housed me for 30 days. I found a job, got my son into daycare. Fast forward 2 decades, he's now enlisted in the Air Force, and I've got a great job. I didn't need the stuff on my list. I'm paying it forward. So I think that just tells you that those nickels and dimes and quarters add up. James's favorite word this year is to be impactful. So every time you're ringing that bell, every time somebody puts $1 or 50 cents in, we're helping change somebody's life. So please this year sign up if you can. On behalf of Stan Kelly, that's why I stand here and do this. Try to sign up for a shift or 2, bring a friend. Thank you, James.
Cindy, thanks. And for our new members, this was Stan Kelly's B-A-B-Y, baby. He would have a clipboard, he wouldn't have a sign-up sheet, he would walk up to your table and tell you what you want to be reading. So Stan, we miss you, we love you, buddy.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'll be very brief. We are at the tail end of our drive to fill the Thanksgiving baskets benefiting Summit Middle School, and I appreciate everybody's help and contributions. We are right at the end of it. We have a little bit of cash. We've purchased the gift cards, but we still have, outside of what's over there, about 9 or 10 bags to go. I have put some bags on the tables. If there is one, please take it and fill it. The list is on the bag. If you don't want to, give it to someone who may. We are very close. We got a little bit of an extension from the middle school, and so we have until now, next Wednesday, I think the 17th. So if you could, please fill a bag, bring it to me on the 17th, and I am now calling on 1 or 2 volunteers to help me shop for anything that's left over. I see one man in particular I'm gonna go. Thank you. Right there, there you go, thank you. I just need, at the end of the deal, to comb the grocery store to make sure we have everything squared away.
Councilman Moore.
Thank you, sir. And we'll get it done. Please consider that, and thank you for your help.
Barry, thanks. New member jumping in. How many more bags do you got, Barry? We got about.
Right now, we need about 12. I think there are only 9 bags, and that case, evidently brought 4 or 5.
Okay.
We're okay. We just need about maybe 10 bags.
This is a long-standing tradition of this club. I know we're gonna help Barry get this done. Okay, Reverend. Real quick, you'll see all the other dates. They're also in your bulletin, but this next, in the Rotarian, sorry, not your bulletin. You got me thinking this is church. And then you're gonna give it to JD when you're done. Okay.
Greetings, brothers and sisters, and welcome to St. Rotary today. Today's message is the Sermon on the Amount. I'm sure all of you are happy with the experience, and it's lived up to our expectations here at St. Luke's. And what I'm doing today is I'm going to ask for your support in showing gratitude to the staff of 4 that provides our facilities and our food each week. Back in the spring, we had 2 options for places to go. One was the convention center and the other was St. Luke's. Food pricing was similar, but the reason we chose St. Luke's is the convention center was going to charge tax and a 23% gratuity service charge for our meals, etc. The church charges us nothing to use the facilities and the staff that provide it for us. So what I'd like for you to understand is that based on the 32 weeks between May 5th and today, that each and every one of you or your employer has approximately $118 in your pocket that you would not have had we gone to the other location. I'm not asking for all of it, but over the next 3 weeks, I'd like a portion of that savings for you to contribute. I have jars on the table, and we will distribute that money on December 1st to the staff members that cook the food and set up the facilities, put the signs out front, help us with the electricity and the sound system as necessary. Like I said, there's a jar on the table, but also you're going to find a coin. Everybody pick up a coin, please. Should be one for everybody here. I want you to take that coin home with you, put it in your purse or your pocket, and that's your reminder to bring cash or check payable to the Edmond Rotary Club and put it in the jar either this week or the next 2 more after that. As I said, we'll give them the money on December 1st. And for Rhiannon, Hayden, Jeff, and Dalton, I hope we'll give them a good Christmas. Thanks for your time. You are dismissed.
How much per person do you want?
No, well, if they gave a buck a week, that's $30.
We already had a lot of announcements today, so we'll move pretty quick. Any visiting Rotarians or guests?
I have 2 club guests today. We have Brenda Schroeder and Mason Carver, and son to Brenda here. They own Copycat Coffee Shop, and it's at University and Ayers. There's a little 7-Eleven, and it attaches to that. So, welcome in.
Thank you. I've got a guest today, one of my favorite people in the world for the last 49 years, and also the Deputy First Assistant in the State Attorney General's office, my sister, Lori Carter.
Good noon, important people. Any other guests or visiting Rotarians? Well, I've already milked you all for dollars this year for your OU and OSU connections. I'll wait for another month to do that till we get to Bedlam. But if you have any dollars to give, we'll take those. I know this is a difficult time of year because we're asking for a bunch of stuff. We want Thanksgiving baskets, we're trying to recognize staff, and we understand that people may be limited on that, but if you can give dollars, we'll take them. If not, we understand. I will highlight two people since it's the theme that started today. The first is Steve Murdoch. I was invited to Rotary by Steve Murdoch and Larry Stevens, so this man single-handedly put together the whole group, I think. And then there's also been a good theme about service above self today. And many of y'all are active in several different areas, but our good Reverend Mike Sanders. So last weekend, 2 weekends ago, on downtown Edmond, they're having like a little fun run, red run or whatever, I think raise money for the school foundation. And Mike's everywhere doing things all the time. Well, I see Scott Streller's tent up because they're handing out water on the run or whatever, and I go by, and it's Mike Sanders standing underneath the handing out waters on Saturday. And so I don't know I don't think he ever stays home. His wife doesn't let him stay home during the day. But he represents us well in the community, so thank you, Mike. And now we'll get to introducing our guest speaker, and Andy Lester is going to do that for us.
I got that, but I don't get the money, right?
Yeah.
Let's see here. Put this on. Here we go. All right. Well, I can literally say that I flew in for this program. I landed at the airport less than an hour ago, and here I am. And I can also tell you that Chicago is no colder than it is here. So first, before I introduce our special guest speaker, I want to have the club greet those who are on Zoom today. I think I was on Zoom last week, but please say hello to Jay Buxton, Jennifer Seaton, Ray Hibbard, and all the way from Lawrence, Kansas, Phil Arnold. So because I wasn't sure if my flight would get in, I wrote out my introduction, sent it to President James, but I don't have to say the first paragraph because that was telling you that I wasn't going to be here. But when Governor Kevin Stitt named John O'Connor to be Oklahoma's Attorney General, he could not have come up with a better person. I can tell you that I've known General O'Connor, mostly as John O'Connor, for approximately 20 years. And I can tell you he is a good, decent, honest man. He comes from a hardworking blue-collar family, and knowing that is important to understanding John O'Connor, the public man. His passions are his faith, his family, his state, and his profession. And I can tell you that that's not done just in words, but in what he has done with his life. John O'Connor has spent much of his adult life working to support the National Prayer Breakfast. And when I say much of his adult life, I mean starting in the mid-1970s when he was a student at Oklahoma State University, go Pokes, and continuing through today. And when I say John O'Connor is passionate about something, I don't simply mean that he merely joins or shows up. Instead, he devotes his time, his talents, and his energy to the activity. Just ask anyone who knows anything about the National Prayer Breakfast, especially here in Oklahoma, but also nationally. John O'Connor's fingerprints are all over that institution. He is active in his church, his community, and his state, and is joined in his passionate service by his wife of 43 years, Lucia O'Connor, who is with us today. And by the way, Lucia is a former Miss Oklahoma from 1976. And from my part of the state, northwestern Oklahoma. Among other endeavors, John O'Connor is a fellow Rotarian and an active member and past president of the Rotary Club of Tulsa. He is an accomplished attorney. For many years, he had his own firm called Newton O'Connor, and more recently was a partner in one of the largest and most respected firms in Oklahoma, Hall Estel, who, by the way, since we've talked about people who are substantially responsible for us being present, Hall Estel is substantially responsible for me being in Oklahoma, as that law firm flew a young Georgetown law student to Tulsa to interview way back in March of 1981. Called to service toward the end of July of this year, General John O'Connor has performed quickly and admirably. He immediately confronted numerous controversies facing anyone who serves as the chief law officer of the state of Oklahoma, and that is what the position of Attorney General is. It's the chief law officer of the state. There was no transition period. He immediately had to lead the state in several cases in the United States Supreme Court in matters involving nothing controversial, abortion, dueling sovereignty claims of the state and various Indian tribes, post McGirt versus Oklahoma, and the death penalty. Like I say, nothing controversial here. And while doing all of that, he found a way to assure that his underpaid staff would get a long-needed and well-deserved pay raise. John O'Connor, I can tell you from my long experience of knowing him, lives the four-way test. He is the epitome of service above self. Would you please join me in giving a warm Rotary Club of Edmond welcome to my dear friend, Oklahoma Attorney General John O'Connor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andy. It's my honor to be with you, having been a Rotarian since 1983. And I will say that initially, as a young associate in a law firm, I attended Rotary, and then over time actually became a Rotarian. And we all know there's a difference. But Cindy, I want to say, Lucia and I have volunteered to ring the bells, and it always seems to be the coldest day of the year. Does anybody else have that experience? It could be 70 on Monday and on Tuesday or Saturday, Friday, and on Saturday we're ringing the bell and we can't get enough clothes on. It's like 30 degrees and blowing. But it's an honor for me to be here with you. It was an honor for me to be appointed by Governor Stitt to be your Attorney General. And so the office of Attorney General is really an incredible opportunity to apply the motto of service above self. And that's what really drew me to it. In fact, the story that we were told in Tulsa about the origin of the Polio Plus campaign is part of the reason that I said yes when the governor called. In 1985, and many of you have heard this story, but in 1985, when the Rotary International Board came up with the idea and the goal of ridding the world of polio, and they had set that goal to raise a certain amount of money by the year 2000, 15 years hence. And I think it was Sabin who was there, Dr. Sabin, who had figured out how to take the vaccine and just apply it with a drop on the tongue. And he congratulated them on their goal. And then he said, let me just tell you something about your timing. If you filled a 747 with children 5 and under, and you crashed it into the tarmac once an hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 365 days, that's how many children in the world are going to contract either terminal or crippling polio each year that you wait to achieve your goal. And the Rotarians who arrived at the meeting thinking how proud they were to have set this goal, were all of a sudden struck by the urgency of shortening their time frame. And so instead of raising their first goal of money in 15 years, they ended up raising that in about 2 years, and then doubling it and doubling it. And now you know that worldwide, we're down to, like, I think it's Afghanistan and one other country maybe, where there are just a handful of new cases of polio. And so that sense of urgency has translated to me in a number of ways. For example, in Tulsa, we talk about education, and we talk about our public education, and then instead of setting a 20-year goal on Tulsa Public Schools, that we say, well, how many kids are going to graduate in that 20-year period who are not college ready or are not workforce ready? And so you see how that sense of urgency translates into almost everything we do. And so, as Andy mentioned, Lucia and I have been involved with and been honored to be involved with the National Prayer Breakfast, which since Eisenhower is the president who called together some business people. And in fact, Senator Carlson from Kansas met with some US senators back in those days. And President Eisenhower, who was a friend of his, called and said, you know, the president's office is the loneliest job in the country. And he asked if they would pull together some of those senators and if the president might be able to join them for prayer sometime. And that was the start of what we call the National Prayer Breakfast. But out of that grew an effort. That group really reached Lucia and me when we were at Oklahoma State University. I was interested in leadership, and I was drawn to leadership, but I wasn't really interested in matters of faith. And what this group of US senators was doing was saying, what are the moral and spiritual implications of leadership? But let's look at the life and teachings of Jesus for our guide for what those implications are. And so it attracted me as student body president to the leadership element, and then introduced me to the faith element. And since that time, I have been committed to following and implementing those principles from the life and teachings of Jesus in my law practice, in businesses I was involved in raising kids, in our marriage, and now as your Attorney General. So I do want to introduce to you Lucia. Andy mentioned her, but we've been married 43 years. And the first time we met at Oklahoma State, and the first time I saw, I went out to Lucia's family's home. She's from Buffalo, north of Woodward. And first time I went out to her home, I looked out the window, and out in the backyard, one of her brothers was field dressing a deer hanging from the swing set. And then I went to take a shower, and the other brother had called up coyotes and shot a couple of them and skinned them, and there were pelts drying in the shower. And so, you know, I made a mental note not to mess with her brothers. Why did I say yes when the governor called? Because our state is in the middle of some incredible issues right now. But having come out of the National Prayer Breakfast, we started to get involved with college students, and I would constantly challenge those students to aggressively determine what they believe, what they were grounding their lives on, and then to apply the values from the truth that they base their lives on. And I always said there's got to be enough evidence to convict you of what you believe in. And so when the governor called and said, you know, I know you pulled your name from the list of candidates to be Attorney General, but if Sarah and I in prayer believe that you're the right person, would you do it? And I said I will, but in the back of my mind, I was thinking, all of these years I've been challenging these college students to get out there and lead and to apply their beliefs. And so here now I was being challenged to do that. And so I said yes. Fortunately, Lucia has been supportive of that, and she's been a great partner in this effort. So July 23, I become the Attorney General, which is, as Andy said, the top legal officer for the state, meaning we represent most of the agencies, the boards, commissions. We represent the state of Oklahoma when there's a lawsuit. We represent the governor. And so the top legal officer for the state, and then also the top law enforcement officer of the state. And so in the first week that I was in office, I got to go into a room and speak to federal, state, and local officers who are involved in fighting human trafficking in Oklahoma. And honestly, until July 23, I didn't really pay any attention to that, and I didn't really even think it was a current problem in our state, that is human trafficking. But getting in that room, they put a case study up on the screen of what they were actually working on. And to see that human trafficking was actually going on in the Oklahoma City area. And so I will just tell you, if you're like me and you didn't really pay much attention to it or believe it, I will tell you it's here. Human trafficking is here. And there are great law enforcement officers and others who are trying to identify that and then go after and arrest the people who are trafficking in humans and make sure that they go to prison. And something that's kind of weird, when I was into private practice, I might be thinking at 3 o'clock in the morning about a lawsuit, but my dreams changed, my thoughts changed. Within a few days, I'm dreaming or thinking about, hey, why don't we put yellow billboards on every interstate that comes into our state that says, if you are engaged in human trafficking, we will see that you go to prison. And so the things that you prioritize, the things that you think about change. The next week I got to go to Tulsa, and speak to the narcotics enforcers for Oklahoma, federal, state, and local. And these are people who frankly, like most of law enforcement, they're underpaid, they're underthanked. They are risking their lives, and they're saving our lives. And so I just came out and told them that I wanted to have Oklahoma buck the national trend. And this is something that I learned in terms of faith. And I know and I respect everybody here who has different ideas of faith. But for me, what I've learned is that if you look at where the crowd is going, most likely Jesus would be going the opposite direction. And so that plays over to me. And if you look at where the national media is going, and if you look at where the liberal states are going in the sense of defund the police or disrespecting law enforcement, and you go the opposite direction, you're probably going the correct direction. And so I told these law enforcement officers that I think Oklahoma should be the flag state. I think we should be the state where we show what it means to respect law enforcement and respect the rule of law and respect our courts. And then that doesn't mean that we embrace the unnecessary use of force. In fact, what I tell these officers is, I will stand with you as an advocate for you. And what I need from you is excellence in the practice of your profession. And so I think in so many areas, we need to make Oklahoma the flag state to show the rest of the nation how the way we live and our values being applied can change the state. So what does it mean? First, let me introduce myself, because I think, as Andy said, when you know who a person is and what drives them, you can kind of guess where they're going to be on certain issues. I was born in Tulsa, raised there. My dad was a machinist for the Frisco Railroad. In his early 50s, he had some heart attacks, and so pretty much all the way during my schooling, he worked the night shift. I have 5 siblings, so we had a total of 6 kids. Mom did not work outside the home for most of those years. And so all 6 of us ended up putting our own way through college at Oklahoma State University. And then out of those 6 kids, we've got 2 law degrees, a PhD in civil engineering, a faculty member at the University of Texas, and 2 MBAs. And I think what are some things that kind of instilled in me when we would polish Dad's boots on Saturday evening once a week, you know, and you'd see the gravel in the boots and you'd go, okay, note to self, just like I don't want to mess with Lucia's brothers, note to self, get a job where you're not going out into the elements all the time. And it might have helped the fact that I just can't fix anything, right? I mean, Dad could fix anything, and he was very patient with me because I couldn't fix anything. And so even now, when I start to fix something, Lucia runs and calls somebody. One time I was out in the backyard, I was standing in a tree with a power saw in my hand, and she came out and told me I had a call from a client. And I said, just tell them I'll call them right back. And they go, no, it's urgent. So I come down from the tree, go in around the front yard where this phone is supposedly being held for me. And by the time I come back, the ladder and the power saw are down at a neighbor's house about 4 doors down. And so if I could do anything else, maybe I would. But practicing law is something I could do. But growing up that way, 6 kids on a machinist's pay gave me an incredible respect for the people who work on a limited amount of income, but work in an honest job and make ends meet and don't rely upon a check from the federal government or the state government. And I know it can be done. It also gives me a respect for the American dream that you can, it doesn't matter really where you came from, it matters how hard you're willing to work and where you're going. And so those 2 things inform me. Now, how does that show up in the Attorney General's office? Well, when the utilities make an application for a rate increase, I understand that and I respect the utilities, and Oklahoma's got some great public utilities. But I still look at that and I say, how much is that going to make a difference on a monthly bill that goes into these homes? And so we end up sometimes being very stingy with the utility companies on how much the rate of a rate increase they get. And but we have a great staff, and we do that. Another way it shows up is, you know, a storm comes through in Moore, Oklahoma, or somewhere else, and you won't believe this, but people still give half of their cost of a new roof to a contractor who then goes and deposits the check and drives out of town. And he will trick, 35 families and then never be found. And so Consumer Protection goes out there and puts these posters out on the yards with our AG's phone number saying, come on, before you give anybody any money or hire anybody, call us and let's make sure that's a legitimate contractor. That's a way that our Consumer Protection unit shows up. We also have a victims protection or care unit that works with the victims, the families of victims of crime. And we can talk about, maybe that's during a little bit of the Q&A. But so in addition to that, we have a Medicaid fraud unit that tries to make sure that we stretch as many of those Medicaid dollars as we can. We also, I get the opportunity to be involved in litigation for the state. If we pass a law, I really at my core believe in our separation of powers. So if the legislature approves a law and the governor signs that bill into law, then we're going to defend that bill. And the courts then can make the choice whether parts of it or all of it are constitutional or unconstitutional. But if you see our office defending a bill, it may not be because we love the bill, but it's going to be because we love the system. And so that's important. But some of the matters that we're involved in, and I think probably number one, although as Andy said, it's not a boring time at all. I sometimes say, wow, time. I sometimes say I was dropped between a mongoose and a cobra on all these issues, right? Vaccine mandates, McGirt, which threatens to really create 2 states out of 1. And many of you think the criminal elements of McGirt is important, but the civil elements are way more significant. But people, rapists, people who committed homicide are being turned out on our streets. Oklahoma is less safe now because of McGirt than it was before July 2020. But also a huge real estate deal just recently had massive problems because they could not find a title insurance company that would insure the title of the seller without excluding end-in challenges under McGirt. And the general counsel from Walmart was in my office, and I asked her, what do you hear from McGirt over in Arkansas? And she said, well, I just hear that it's a very uncertain investment environment in Oklahoma. So if that doesn't chill you at your bones, like those big employers that come in that employ people that pay ad valorem taxes, that support the schools and the county operations, if they start to feel like Eastern Oklahoma is an uncertain place to invest, then we're in trouble, and our jobs are in trouble. Keeping our young people in the state is in trouble. And I'll guarantee you there are some Indian nations that are trying to figure out how does that affect the north and the western parts of the state as well. It's time for me to go to questions and answers, but I will tell you that we are very close to filing a lawsuit against the Biden administration on mandating that we let the government force our employers to require us to put a vaccine in our bodies or lose our jobs. And so we're going to come in hot on that. So I told your president I would turn it back to him very quickly. Do we have 1 or 2 questions? Anybody want to ask a question? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Regarding McGirt, was just mentioned.
Yes, sir.
And the Supreme Court has been asked to revisit that.
That's right.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so McGirt, the Supreme Court is fond of saying that nobody gets to correct their decisions but them. There's your alarm. Dang it. But so McGirt is the law of the land right now, but McGirt is a criminal court case. The question was, what's Indian country for purposes of federal major crimes? And so they defined Indian country instead of being land that the tribes own. They said it's the historic pre-statehood reservation lands. So they kind of, in my opinion, they ignored the enabling, the creation of the state of Oklahoma. But anyway, so now that means, and the nations are saying that the eastern half of Oklahoma is all under the 5 tribes' various reservations. So law enforcement, the payment of taxes to the state, those are all at issue right now. And so we've asked the Supreme Court, now that we're a year and a half smarter, because since that decision, to take up one of these other cases and use it as an opportunity to go and either overturn or restrict the scope, because the Biden administration and several of the Indian nations have been treating McGirt, a criminal court decision, criminal law decision, as a civil law decision. And so that's why it's so dangerous and alarming. Yes, sir.
Let's go with one more.
One more question. Anybody? Okay, we have 4 kids, we have 10 grandkids, and I really want to keep them in the state. And so when you see me fighting for Oklahoma, it's because I want us to hand off a state to our kids and grandkids that we are proud of, and that's better than we inherited. So thank you very much. Yeah, thanks. That's it.
Mr. O'Connor, we certainly appreciate you being here. Mr. O'Connor as well. I know where Buffalo is. I'm from O'Keene. Speaking of that, those of you that made the trip out Monday, I appreciate it more than you'll ever know. You know who you were. So I had to stand up Monday and give my dad's eulogy. I had a backup plan to read it from the preacher if I wasn't able to do it. And I was that close to having to go with the backup plan until I looked out and saw a bunch of you that were there. So you know who you are, and I appreciate you more than you will ever know. General O'Connor, we are going to donate a book to the Ida Freeman Elementary School in your honor, and we'll give you the opportunity to pick which one you want and sign it. And when you think about service above self, all I can say is this: anybody that would leave the private practice to go do what you did, that is definitely everything that embodies service above self. So thanks for that decision. Thanks also as a fellow Rotarian for allowing us today to have more announcements than normal in the way we're going to serve the Edmond community. So thanks for sharing some of your time with us. And then we have a scholarship drawing every week, and we have a 50-50 pot. So one of our members will get a chance to draw, and I'm going to ask Ms. O'Connor to pick a number here.
Am I picking a number?
This one, yes, perfect. It's the last four, 4588, the last four, 4588. All right, while Mark comes up, so you know the drill. The winner gets half the pot, the other half goes to the scholarship kids. And we're looking for the ace of clubs, Mark. Not even close at all to the three of hearts, but you get your pick between a Hershey's Kiss. Which one? All right. Thanks again to Keith's amazing team. You'll see the impact we're making with all of the micro missions that we have around town. I think we made a great decision when we went with micro missions instead of the pancake supper, so breakfast. So remember, let's be impactful in person, verbally, and behind the keyboard. With that in mind, please go out and be great Rotarians.